Shalom, my name is Rayah Levy. I'm coming to you from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, at the home of the Levy family. Today I'm going to show you how to make a traditional dish that is used during Passover, and it's called Karoset. I have all my ingredients here on the table so that you can see. We need apples. Right now I only have 4 apples. Normally I use a lot of apples if I'm doing it for the synagogue, but today I'm only doing it for our home. And again, the apples, we have raisins. The raisins are here. And then what I did, I put the raisins to soak in wine so that as it's soaking, I want the raisin to absorb all the juices and to make it much softer, so that when I'm finished dicing up the apples, I will add the raisins to the apples. The next thing that I do have here are nuts. I have a selection of nuts. I have pecans and I have almonds. But you can either use either or. It's just that I would prefer to mix them. You don't necessarily have to use both of them. The spices that I have, ginger. And what you need to do is to peel the ginger. Actually, you don't peel. Let me take that back. You don't actually peel the ginger, but rather you scrape the skin from the ginger. Okay? I also have nutmeg, and this nutmeg is from St. Vincent, fresh nutmeg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the nutmeg and I'm going to pound it in this bowl right here.
What if someone can't get fresh nutmeg from St. Vincent?
Well, if they can't get fresh nutmeg, you can go to the store and buy ground nutmeg. So
what if a person can't get fresh nutmeg like you have?
Well, if you don't have fresh nutmeg, you can buy nutmeg from the supermarket, which will be in a bottle, in a container. So just like with the cinnamon, I have both. I have fresh cinnamon and I have ground cinnamon that I bought from the supermarket. I'm going to use both of these in my Karoset. What I'm going to do, I'm going to break this up into pieces and mix it in. We also have honey. And we also have vanilla extract. So these are the ingredients that are going into making my Karoset, our traditional dish for Passover. Okay, so I have my cutting board here. I'm going to take my cutting board out. I'm going to pour it into quarters. Because I have a food processor. Normally, again, I usually make this at the synagogue. And I don't usually have certain equipment at the synagogue to make it. So normally what I would do is to actually dice the apples up. So we're going to take out the seeds. And I'm going to show you when I'm at the synagogue, what I'm going to do just for this one particular apple. But the rest I'm going to put into the food processor. So again, if you don't have a food processor, this is what you can do. And if some people, again, this is preference. If you want, you can peel the skin. You don't necessarily have to peel the skin. What I did, I washed the apples thoroughly before I started this whole process. So it's up to you. It's optional. You can either peel the skin or you can leave the skin on. If you do leave the skin on, just remember that you wash it thoroughly. So again, if I was not using the food processor, I would dice these up really small because I prefer if they're small. Some people might like it chunky, but I prefer to just dice mine up into pieces. this is going on matzo crackers, so that's why I'm doing it really fine.
Do you have another video on how to make your own matzah?
I do. I have a video on how to make my own matzah, and I'm going to start making that tomorrow also. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the bowl that I have here. Another tidbit I neglected to share with you, if you don't want the apples to turn brown too fast, you can actually squeeze some lemon into the apples so that the apples are not brown. It doesn't turn brown too fast, and the lemon juice preserves it. So I placed the apples in the food processor. First I showed you how to dice it, so now apples are now in the food processor, and I'm going okay, so if you notice that the ones that I was dicing with the knife was a little bit bigger than what I have here, but this is how I like it. Because again, I'm going to spread this on matzah crackers, and I'm going to spread it on the matzah that I actually make, not the ones that's store-bought. So I'm going to make my own matzah tomorrow.
Yours are not like crackers, right?
No, they're not like crackers. So try to get it all out. You don't want to waste anything. And so remember I told you about the lemon. So I'm going to squeeze a bit of lemon in here. And the reason why I'm squeezing it in my hand first is because if there are any seeds in here, I don't want the seeds to get into the Karoset. So I squeeze it in my hands, and so that's why you have to make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly. Everything must be clean. I'm just mixing everything in right here as far as what I just did. And now let's place that there. And what I'm going to do, I am going to also add this. Normally, I would pound the nuts in here, but I'm not going to do that. It's much easier for me to put it in the food processor, so I'm going to put the nuts in the food processor also. And another thing with the nuts, if you don't have a mortar, if you don't have this, you can actually use the cutting board to chop the nuts out with the knife. See? Life is much easier when you have the food processor.
Did they have those in ancient Egypt?
No, they didn't. But now we have them, and we live in a society where we need to do things quickly. We have these devices to our hands. So I'm going to mix this.
You said they had to do it quickly. Doesn't the Torah say that they had to get out of Egypt so quickly that they didn't have time to make the bread? So how would they have time to make karoset?
How would they have time to make karoset?
Without food process. But did they actually make the karoset in the Passover story, or is the karoset that we have today symbolic of something else?
It's more symbolic, and thanks for that question. It's more of this is more of a symbolic nature because it represents the mortar. Because at one point, Pharaoh didn't want to give them the straw to make bricks, and so he said, you know what? I'm not going to give you any straw anymore, so you're going to have to figure this out. So this represents the mortar.
And that would be the mud, as they would, work with the mud to turn mud into bricks.
Yes.
And they had to make those bricks to build the cities of Egypt.
That's correct.
While you're mixing that, this also then tells us that the Israelites did not build the pyramids, because the pyramids, for those of us who've been to Egypt, the pyramids are not made out of bricks, they're made out of stone, right? So they would cut the stone and drag the stone and build the pyramids, but the children of Israel lived in an area called Goshen. We used to live in Goshen,
yes,
in Vermont.
Yes, we did.
But the area of Goshen, and they also built probably, we believe, the cities of Ramesses. So many of the cities, the homes, the palaces, those are what the Hebrews built. They did not build the pyramids, which were already ancient at the time that Abraham arrived there and the time of Moses arrived there. So the Hebrews, they, from the story is what you're making there, and I want to stop you from mixing.
Yes, because...
But what they were making, they had the job of making the cities and homes of Egypt out of bricks, which are made out of mud, and then mud is allowed to dry, and that turns into brick. Right. And so when we think of slavery, we think about the work that we would do. Just like today, those of us of African and African American and Caribbean heritage, when we think of the enslavement of the Middle Passage, we think about our ancestors working in the cotton fields, or working in the sugarcane fields, or working in the banana plantations or the tobacco fields. Those are the things that we associate with slavery. And our ancient ancestors in the land of Egypt, they would be thinking about the mud and making bricks. And that's what this symbolizes for us at our Passover Seder.
Okay, thank you so much for that synopsis. What I'm going to now do is to crush the nutmeg. So remember, this is a nutmeg. This is actually the shell, and the nutmeg, this is in this shell. So I'm going to pound it. I'm not going to put that in this in the food processor. This I'm going to pound. And I'm also going to add the ginger. So we pound them both at the same time. So this is going to give it a really nice flavor, and because the nutmeg is so fresh too, it's going to be the taste, the flavor is going to be very prominent. With the cinnamon, I'm going to break the cinnamon sticks up. And what we're going to do, so that you can actually taste the cinnamon, because when you use the powder would absorb it much faster. But because I'm using the cinnamon sticks, what's going to happen is that we're going to put this in the refrigerator, and we're going to let it sit for a while. And so therefore you can then the cinnamon sticks will absorb all the juices, the apples and so forth, and it will take on you. Then you will taste the cinnamon. So you're gonna let this sit for a while.
You could even make this the day before, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so when we're serving this, we're gonna have to be careful as far as the cinnamon sticks, but it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I would like to still use a dash of cinnamon, just a dash. And I think that might have been 2 dashes. And this is a 1/4 cup of honey. I'm going to pour the honey in here. And you can, and again, this is based on your taste. If you want it sweeter, it's up to you. You can add more honey. It's all a matter of taste and your preference. And don't forget the apples are already sweet. So I like to get every bit out. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm using the spoon so I can get everything out.
And between the apples, the honey, and the raisins, this is pretty sweet, right?
Exactly. So you don't need as much. To me, I don't think you need to add as much honey.
Yeah. And I'll say that we usually serve the Karoset as a dessert at the end of the meal.
Exactly. Exactly. And so now, as you know, the raisins have been soaking here for a while, and it takes a while for me to prepare everything. So again, if you can just have the raisins soaking while you are preparing all the ingredients. So I'm going to add the wine and the raisins.
That looks good. I wish they could smell it on the camera.
Yes, it smells delicious. Maybe my assistants, the camera guy and the light guy, can get me something that I can taste it, so I can, so you guys will know how delicious it is. So this is our final product, our Karoset, and I am gonna do the honors of tasting it first before everyone else.
Oh boy.
Put it on some matzo cracker. Delicious. Delicious, delicious, delicious. And then don't forget, put this in the refrigerator so it can chill, and it tastes even better once you take it out of the refrigerator. This concludes the making of Karoset. I've been making this for over 20 years, and I would like to wish each and everyone a healthy and peaceful Passover. Thank you. Until next time.